Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at Trine Enhanced Edition. This is the 2014 remake of the 2009 game Trine. There's been 4 Trine games in the series, and 3 of them were liked. The third one went from 2.5D platforming to 3D platforming, and people didn't like that, so then they sort of rushed out a Trine 4 that I think was better received, but still ran into some problems. Let's see. Yeah, I think I still don't feel like that's quiet enough on the audio, so let me adjust a little bit more. Yeah, it feels more natural. I got a warning from the launcher when turning the visual settings up to the maximum. I've turned up UI visibility to large, but that didn't seem to really change anything. And this has stereoscopic 3D. The game itself, you control 3 different characters with 3 different abilities to solve puzzles. Trine is a, I guess, standout name compared to, say, calling the game Thruple or thinking of some longer title that particularly might explain things more. Say, if this was a land called Fantasia, for instance, just to make up a name. This could have been the Heroes of Fantasia series or something along that line. Video games tend not to put enough length in their titles for my taste, and then you end up with a case of, over the decades, there being 3 or 4 different games that are just called Tomb Raider. And in that case, it's the same developer making Tomb Raider. Or Hitman is another great example of that. But then you also have some games that are just called Dark, where there are multiple games on Steam called Dark that by different developers. Now I'm wearing headphones, but I don't think I would want to use headphone mode for recording. I won't be playing with anyone, and this does feel like this is probably a game that would be better suited to play with multiple people. I guess it really comes down to the thought, are you seeing the entertainment here because you have to swap between 3 different characters with 3 different abilities, or are you seeing the entertainment here as having a multiplayer co-op game? And that would be certainly a different experience for different people. Controller wise, there's a option here to have multiple keyboard and mice, which surprisingly there really hasn't been until recently even support on Steam to have more than a couple of controllers plugged in. So the idea of potentially having like 4 or more controllers plugged into Windows probably would work as far as like Xbox controllers or whatever. But most games on Steam really don't support that, and Steam itself seemed not to really support that. There's a limited number of games that would take advantage of that too, but it then becomes a question certainly about who is following who there. There's a collection here of achievements that you, I think, will mostly get through playing the entire game. Seems like some of them might be skill based, and some of them do seem to be based on getting collectibles. They give you 1 achievement for launching the enhanced edition. Getting this on Steam, you do have the original edition if there was some reason you wanted to play that. And it is worth mentioning too that there's kind of an odd start screen in that you start playing in that background as the character that's standing there, and you can actually play a little bit, but then once you hit a button it brings up the menu. I think that's probably as much as we need to go through. It's a little surprising that there's a difficulty. Oh, I also want to see multiplayer here. Like, local multiplayer game is an option. So if you were going to do that, you could have up to 3 players, because of course it's just 3 players. this, I think, would be kind of a weird game for you to put a lot of time playing in multiplayer. This definitely has that stink of an era in which every game had to have multiplayer, where I would have to assume that had they not spent so much time putting in multiplayer, as far as like online multiplayer, and only had local multiplayer, they would have had more time to have more levels to design. But let's start the game.
Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, a kingdom was prospering.
No subtitles.
But peace
Or I missed the
could only
subtitles.
last so long. The old king died. With no descendant to the throne, the kingdom fell into chaos.
Stationary painting images. Not bad looking.
Wizards alike. New kings emerged, only to fall the next day. But the madness of men would soon be overshadowed by a far greater evil. The magic that once gave life and good fortune had transformed into something sinister. One by one, grave by grave, the dead began to rise, feeding off the energy that grew stronger with each passing night. Fear spread throughout the kingdom, and it was soon abandoned.
Okay, so there's just like an abandoned kingdom that I guess we're gonna explore.
On the outskirts of the kingdom, near the Astral Academy, a thief carried out her cunning plan. She had learned of an ancient object of tremendous value. The Astral Academy, left to rot in the face of the terrible enemy, had no one to keep the treasure safe. The time was right.
So I guess we might have some slight split stories happening here, where we'll maybe play 3 tutorial levels each around each of the characters, and then something's going to happen to force them into interacting.
She had made her way to the castle and would soon lay her hands on the treasures she so desired.
Alright, so first things first, I want subtitles. What? It must be... Yeah, it was hidden behind languages. And let's, I guess, return to the game. Nothing else needs to be changed. So you press this to move. Although, it seems like they want you to accidentally fall to your death immediately, because this move prompt at the top is not going away with the back button or anything like that. Alright, so had I just moved, I would have fallen down there. So once you get to this point that you can't crawl under, so this is 2.5D design. As far as, it's pretty basic. It's 3D models on a flat 2D plane. So right trigger is a grappling hook, lets you swing, and then there's nothing down here. Each character is going to have a different ability, and I guess the real question would be, how many are you going to be able to just transform between the different characters in single player or immediately, which kind of undoes a lot of puzzles if you're not careful. And they make the female character the thief because that probably would make a lot more sense than doing a female barbarian. Although, frankly, I would be more interested had they made the warrior or the wizard female. But I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What I'm not seeing here is any attacks. Interesting. So that is trying to get me over trying to teach me to use the grapple. Alright, so you shoot things with the right stick. Which then knocks these experience orbs, or urns as they were, down. Interesting.
Gentle Moon smiled at the thief as she made her way towards the shrine of ancient treasure. Strangely, the protective charms around the shrine allowed her to enter unharmed.
Interesting. So you have infinite arrows, and you probably are never gonna really fight anything. There might be like one boss fight, and that's it. Yeah, I feel like you're gonna end up getting to the center of this treasure, and then you're gonna meet up with two other people, and then fates are gonna be combined.
I got it.
As the thief lay her hand on the treasure, she had a tingling sensation. The thief would soon discover that fate had taken hold of her.
Yeah, I think it would be more interesting to have a female warrior.
A wizard was just waking up. The wizard had taken a look in the spyglass and seen the terrible undead army. He was keen not to die.
By my trousers, I must escape.
He had been studying the stars and trying hard to learn the elusive fireball spell that all wizards ought to know. Of course, that was a lie. For at that moment, when all hope was lost, something extraordinary happened.
Interesting. Well, I don't think I got an achievement there. It's funny they're just going to tell you additional players can join the game by pressing start on the controller. I'd like to see that prompt go away. Alright, so he has something that lets him look at things with the right stick. And then, I guess, interact with things all over the place. So he creates the square blocks, which will obviously be used to activate any number of puzzles, pressure plate puzzles. But see, then the controls, the cursor kind of doesn't disappear. That kind of stinks. Move the cursor on top of it, and then left to elevate objects. Interesting. Alright, well. So then he can't elevate his own objects. So the wizard is the block pusher. I suppose if you were going to go on a gender breakdown, the real interesting experience here would be if you were going to have 3 female characters to kind of balance out the vast majority of games where you can only play as a male character. And that's the thing that no game developer has ever been really willing to, well, apparently it's more the publishers are not willing to do that, more than even developers are not willing to do it. Interesting. It seems like you have an infinite amount of force there. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense that the wizard would be levitating blocks. I kind of wish the cursor would disappear faster, though. That still feels bad. So here we can see some draw a square to conjure a box. Interesting. I didn't realize I had drawn a square before. Okay. So can we levitate that box? No. And can we swap between different characters at the moment? No. So... Let's see what this does. If I take this box and place it here... yeah. Well, that was a little awkward. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if this is a little bit of wonkiness in general. You can only have one box, obviously. And then you have a limited amount of mana. Suppose you have a limited amount of manga too, if you're into reading manga. But okay, so how do I get up there? Let's see. I guess what I needed to do was get over to this point. See, seemingly it's not super easy to push the box because pushing the box seems to push the entire swinging platform. Alright. So we'll try and jump that way. Fail. We'll draw a new box. We'll get up here and see if I can just grab the ledge of this platform. Well, there is a section up there. So is it possible I'm supposed to make a jump all the way to the ledge there and hit that? If I am supposed to do that, then it almost feels like I should draw a box so that this goes down even further. Alright. It seems... I feel like the thief could grab a ledge. And this character doesn't seem like he can grab a ledge. And this is very possibly going to end up causing me some trouble because I think I'm just going to miss this collectible. And right bump, left bump's not doing anything. Left trigger and right trigger does the same thing. D-pad moves up and down. Left stick does nothing. So there isn't, by the likes of it's a real way to do anything, like switch to a different character. So that was easier than it seemed. I just needed to draw a puzzle book there.
The wizard saw a glimmering light coming from the shrine. No one had been able to visit it for centuries because of the ancient magic protecting whatever lay inside.
So that was a more simplistic tutorial section, except for the fact that I made it more difficult. And they've kind of reflected everything so that you always start on the left and move to the right. It might have been an interesting idea to break with that traditional video game mentality and say, no, actually this person's going to have to go right and this person's going to have to go left.
My darling, why the painful look on such a pretty face? What is this object you are holding on to? How did you get here?
The wizard touched the thief's hand, and then the object. His hand got stuck.
What kind of trickery is this?
For once, the wizard was more interested in magic than anything else. He was also afraid for his dear life. But there was someone nearby who welcomed a challenge.
So they touch this metal stone and they're getting stuck to it, apparently. And apparently the wizard's a bit of a flirt.
At the other end of the Astral Academy, a knight had been practicing his own skills to battle the undead and prove himself worthy of joining the king's army. Between me and you, he did not quite understand what undead meant, but this was his chance to be the bravest knight of all.
So he's supposed to be the dumb character, and he apparently has some mana too. So did the archer have mana?
He was on the lookout for anything unusual.
I can't help but wonder if in the minds of the original creators of this game, they did want this to be a game called thruple. Thruple being the term for a three-way relationship that are fairly uncommon, romantically speaking, and hard to maintain, as there's just one more person to maintain a relationship with. That would be quite a interesting idea if it turned out that the thief had two boyfriends and the two boyfriends were bisexual, and each of them had a girlfriend and boyfriend, and they were all in one group in love with each other. That is certainly an alternative lifestyle that you wouldn't really expect. Alright, so left trigger and right trigger seems to just do... Well, left trigger does nothing. Right trigger does kind of a backswing, which is the same as the X. I guess that's not a backswing. That's just a wide swing. Okay. And so the guy can break things. These prompts are huge, but I guess that's because I turned the UI elements so high. Maybe I should turn that back down. Let's see. UI visibility, small, medium. Medium was the default, and that seems actually fine. He seems like he's a fairly heavy guy too, so he'll seemingly break all this. I question though, how in the world am I going to end up with that much collectibles? Just doesn't feel like there's enough of them out there. Like, alright, now the glowing lanterns never get hit. And we have a shield, okay. And the fact that we're being attacked by basically a cannon is interesting news, because that does go to show that this is more than likely a game where you're not going to be fighting moving creatures very often. And each has a health bar.
Was this the knight's day of honor? He had sworn an oath to himself to protect the shrine and the academy. Nothing could stand in his way.
So if this was a story that was going to end up with this being a group of 3 becoming together as a team, which I don't think at that point you would use the phrase thruple. That would feel awkward, certainly, instead of just using the word team. This first game in the series would have to establish that, and seemingly we are establishing that these three are going to be merged together magically by fate and not by actual choice. And I suppose Trine, or thruple, if you had called the game that, then locks you into the idea that there literally could only be 3 people in every game. You couldn't add new characters. Which, frankly, puzzles would only get exponentially more complicated if you started to have 4 characters needed to solve each puzzle. Again, this is left to right. So we've just been taught that we are going to do left to right. Always.
The knight joined in, taking a firm grip of the object's third side, in a way that only a mighty warrior can.
Oh no, this doesn't bode well.
None of these animations of these characters look great.
And the wizard, the thief, and the knight simply disappeared.
You shouldn't write simply
simply
disappeared.
The mysterious object. The wizard tried hard to remember everything he'd learned of the shrine and its artifact. His mind raced through ancient tales and legends. Finally, the wizard remembered.
Now the skip button's being overwritten by the subtitles.
Was a device that could bind souls together. How it worked, he did not know. But he knew that it was connected to the legend of the Guardian, whose earthly remains had been buried in the catacombs deep underneath the Astral Academy. The tomb resided right below the shrine. The wizard could not explain it, but he was sure the object was called the Trine.
So
Knight didn't care. A more pressing concern was on his mind.
So they failed to put the subtitles in smaller sentences. Generally speaking, subtitles should be 1 or 2 sentences on screen, because not only are you trying to accommodate people who may have hearing problems, you also want to accommodate people that might have hearing problems and difficulty reading or dyslexia or ADD, and having more than 1 or 2 sentences on the screen at a time could have somebody lose their place and start all over again. And it's not like you're giving them a lot of time. Would have been easy to put the start button and the prompt at the top. In general, we have been all over the place in this design with a start button at the bottom, but then a prompt to press start to join the game at the top, and our instructions at the top, and the heads up display, life bar, and mana is in the top left. They've done nothing with the top right except for show saving sections.
We must take her into custody. She stole the king's treasure.
Did you not understand a word I said? It is not treasure, it's an ancient object, the Trine. I believe it has bound our souls. We are stuck together.
But
We need subtitles with a background to it.
The thief remained silent.
This is not a
He
good
was waiting for
way
the
to
right
display the
moment to escape,
backgrounds.
hopefully with the treasure and without the pair of fools.
I think I know how we can use the device as we like.
So, is there, under language settings, subtitles and menus? Nope. Visual settings, tooltips off. Might need to turn that off at a certain point. Yeah, there's no ability to put a background on the subtitles. If there was, they would do that. So now, with the right bump and left bump, you swap magically between the 3 characters. So one thing I want to see is what drains her mana. Arrows don't seem to do anything. Grappling hooks apparently only attach to wooden surfaces. Alright. Good to know. I suppose there are multiple settings here. to take into account. One being that the soldier guy is probably a little bit lighter than the thief is. No, I'm heavier than the thief is. And so some of these puzzles won't work. Wow, that guy was quite the mess. So we got one thing for killing one of them, but not for the rest. And he can't break cubes. I feel like we're probably gonna run into a situation where a lot of collectibles will be hidden behind things. And because there's certainly a lot of that still going on. He has like an air dash. And we are now seemingly going to get all pickups when fighting things. Which that feels kind of generic.
They don't scare me. On guard!
Alright, so falling to your death is in the spikes is not a smart move. So you might very well be in a situation where some of these health chances are gonna be, you're gonna have to like sacrifice a lot of your health on one character, then so you can switch to another character and keep them healthy. More than likely that would be a case of don't let your main guy's health move around and lower. Alright, so in this case, you have to drag this all the way this way, then drag it back and then release it. And kind of force it. Interesting. But then it's also in the way. Either my own cube's in the way, or you can't move yourself with the cube, which probably would be an easy way to solve a lot of puzzles and cheat a lot of puzzles. I imagine this is a game where speedrunning would be
What have I
fairly
got myself into? How to find a way to
easy.
reverse the spell, to undo the magic. The tomb of the Guardian in the catacombs may have the answer. And it's not far away.
Alright, so she can shoot those guys. There's some benefit there. Let's see, well, down here first to grab this, we can see there's a cube. And I guess anytime we see that there's a cube, it probably is an indication that there should be something that happens. We found the holiday secret, so I guess maybe there's some secrets like that. Okay. I guess there's a case of how big you want to make your cube too, because it seems to be somewhat varied. Well, that was not the way I was planning on doing that, but it accomplished it, so.
Oh, that's just great.
Suppose each of these are checkpoints, and in tight locations, the soldier is going to be the best person. But the problem, I would say here, is he doesn't really have a like B button to use his shield for, so like having to use the right stick to bring up the shield seems kind of unlikely to happen in most scenarios. Like I can do that, sure, all day long, but does that really help me any? It buys me enough time to do this. So unless I'm supposed to, yeah, unless I was supposed to do something like swap between here, and at a certain level, this does feel like you need to, when you pick up health, be rewarded by getting health for all of the characters. Alright. See, I'm not sure I can. Alright, so I've just killed that character. Interesting. So are there 2 solutions to every puzzle? See how big a cube we can make. Picked up mana potion, picked up experience. Well, we're definitely gonna have to solve this puzzle better now that we've lost our thief character. He doesn't have any attacks, so the idea of taking on these skeletons is kind of insane thought if you don't have the soldier. But maybe you get a game over if you manage to kill 2 characters anyway, so it may not matter. Because it really stops being much of a game that requires multiple characters if... And there's no way to look down there to see if there is something. We're still 13 short. And now that we're back at the checkpoint, I guess we can go down here and fall to our death. And then bring him back to life. Interesting. So they were being fairly generous there. Yeah. And I guess it is when you get health that is shared between each character. Alright, so we've got a couple swinging platforms that we can start swinging. This definitely is a physics game. And probably for its time, it was probably a slightly interesting physics game on that element. Now, this feels almost like stuff you would just expect to see happen. Alright, so you could either try to shoot this with arrows to get it strong enough to overshoot something else, or you just use a cube. I think you're better off by far just using a cube. Or can you just grab these? Oh yeah, you can just grab them. So yeah, that was way easier. I can't help but feel like in a lot of scenarios and a lot of puzzles, there is just going to be one character's ability that's a little game breaking. The ability of the wizard to specifically focus and just move everything is certainly game breaking. Alright, so here the trick is to do that. And then here the trick is obviously to use the barrier. I assume the case here is that this is also limited number of... I'm gonna have to draw a small cube. Yeah, I assume that there's just a limited number of skeletons that pop up in each area. Alright, so if that got me through... Nice that you can walk backwards. How do you get down here? Interesting. We see a cube here. But I don't see a solution to the cube. And I imagine we will start to run into scenarios where instead of using just one cube, you're going to end up having to use 2 or 3 cubes by moving existing cubes. Alright. So then that checkpoints you. And I got hit by spikes. See, yeah, seems like it's not particularly designed to work that way. There's nothing up here, although I guess you could have swung for the platforms. Was there possibly another platform like further down this way that I missed? No. Interesting. Weird that there would be this underground section that with seemingly no way to interact with it. Like if I was to draw a cube around here, which I'm doing circles, obviously, not doing squares. Do something like that. Yeah, nothing's happening. And I feel like if there was something that was supposed to happen, then maybe there's a small switch at the base of this. And if I can just make a small enough square, which using a controller, that's not super easy to do. Well, I picked up some experience doing that, so there's like a skeleton or something down there. Let's just move forward. I guess I'll have to come back and experiment later. Let's see. Wow. Well, I feel dumb for that. I literally only had to move a small fraction forward. I can pick up this cube, but I can't move it anywhere. Grappling hook only attaches to these things. Alright, so I just need to hit that with the arrow, I guess. I thought that I needed the sword. So well, I see something here that I can control. And I see something here that I can control. So I guess I could build my own little stacking tower. You can move two things, but not easily. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna hold very well. Well, I might have made this a lot more difficult for myself to get back up to the other side. Music's starting to feel a little repetitive. More and more it becomes obvious to me that games should have either the ability to go quiet for a little bit, or simply just be silent, or play different songs. Okay. That solves that part. How this one gets the collectible though? You don't have a lot of control here. Oh, so that was just jump up, I guess. And then you can just swing your way over. I can also see where like a hardcore mode in a game like this would probably be a little bit more beneficial for later players, people that wouldn't want to end up, would want more of a challenge. I could also of course see how that could be incredibly frustrating for new players. So I'm glad it's not the default. Alright, so I've got to get a bigger box to just get it a little bit on the edge so I can maybe get there. There we go, we got the collectible. But we'll have to be fairly careful otherwise. It seems what it is if you hold the A button down, you will maybe grab a ledge, which that could be beneficial to know, but also you have to be careful. And you can transfer from one to the other. I don't know if I would actually get stuck in the middle of this wheel, but I suspect what you're supposed to do here is grab this and cause the wheel to turn the other direction. Nope, it doesn't seem like anything lets you do that. So I've stopped the wheel, for whatever that's worth.
They don't like us being here.
So we're probably gonna have to go in circles and come back around. Wow, and it's taken about an hour to do this first level after the tutorial. A lot of this certainly is just gonna come straight down to simpler solutions, or yeah, there's 4 more, can't be that much more game. But yeah, also a lot of this is just going to be platforming abilities, so I could imagine people with poor skill platforming would have trouble. Well, I think that might be the end of the game, so I'm gonna take a moment to see if we can fight some people, some skeletons over here on the far right first. There we go. The way this is depicted is still weird. Well, yeah, it definitely feels like there's more game. So it would be weird if this ended it right here, but clearly there can't be that much more. Be open. Found the necklace of life.
This looks very nice. Perhaps this journey isn't for nothing.
I definitely would
Let's strike
think.
a deal. I'll help you find whatever you're looking for, and I get to keep all the jewelry.
I must say, that necklace looks very good on you. It's a deal.
Captain Beerheart would not approve of this.
So yeah, I would just think that the thief is probably going to end up being the more dominant personality of this group. Where the lecherous wizard is also going to play a bit of a role. See, I think we are close to the end here. And with the introduction of there being collectibles like that, we now have a kind of unenviable position where there's more. I press the back button to assign skill points. Alright, so finding 50 in a level isn't perhaps a goal, although there might be an achievement from it. It isn't a max goal. So we could increase box to level 1 or level 2, which allows the wizard to conjure 2 boxes that exist in the same time, or shoot 2 arrows at once, which I feel like the arrows in particular are pretty bad, or give the knight a 5% chance of critically hitting enemies, causing triple damage, which I don't think we're ever going to run into a situation like that where that really matters. And if we've been collecting the jars, then why is there a secondary indicator here of XP that's like 19 out of 25, and then a third indicator of XP which is 16 out of 20, unless this is saying that there actually is 6 more XP jars in this level, which it might be the case. I guess that is the case. And then there are 14 more skeletons worth of XP around and 1 more collectible. 2 boxes feel like they'd be very useful, but 2 arrows I think maybe brings the archery into the world of being actually useful. So I'm hoping this works better. Yeah, see, just a slight spread now. And if I fire quickly, they still stay very tight. If I wait and aim, they still stay very tight. So I didn't fix my main problems with it, but it did, I think, offer up a potential solution to some of the problems. Okay, no collectible there. We got some experience and some cubes. I feel like you probably aren't ever actually going to need 2 cubes. But it will just be a time saver unless you're going to try some shenanigans. That's a great example there of like a time saver more than in platforming saving you time. The good news is most people probably do have a decent amount of experience with platforming. This might be a slightly interesting game to put a young kid to play, but it couldn't be that young. I would think 14, 15-year-olds, maybe 13, 12-year-olds. Otherwise, the game might just get too complicated with the puzzles. I have yet to been stumped myself, but I could see you quickly running into scenarios where there's just more and more elements, and with more and more elements, that there being less and less success. Let's see. Alright. And I guess the question really comes down to how much do I want to mess around with this versus just doing it the way I think they probably want you to do it, which is to just put a box. Alright, so this is way easier than I'm making it out to be. Just put a box here, put that there, and then let that bring you up high enough to at least get to this point, and then awkwardly not mess up. Or do awkwardly mess up. This is probably a lot easier than even that, isn't it? Yeah, I'm making this more difficult than it needs to be, by far. All I really needed to have done is hit the back button. 2 more XP bottles and some characters. All I really would have needed to done is had played as this character alone, and then I could have put a box here and tried to balance it out that way, and then tried to draw a box here. Or you can just rush it if you want to and save yourself some frustration, because that would have been, frankly, less than an ideal experience. So one more skeleton guy. I see him. He's wandering off. And that is almost all of the collectibles. But I definitely can feel how you would potentially miss some. That should be the last skeleton fight. Let's see. I don't know which way to go here. Are we going down? Yes, we are. We want to go down first. So that means we want to get up there first. And then we want to do this to move ourselves over. And then we want to swap to this guy. So he falls down and breaks that. And then that's the second collectible. A Ring of the Spellcaster, which I assume the thief is keeping even that jewelry, which that doesn't really make the most amount of sense. Frankly, you would think that they would share it more equally. You know, it just occur to me that you could easily have a game like this with puzzles and then throw in like dialogue and have a real interaction relationship much closer to like a visual novel, which more and more I seem to reference things from the perspective of what if this had more visual novel elements. I guess if you were going to go with the idea of this being a romantic trio, you probably would have that. Alright, so did we get everything? Yes, according to this, we've collected everything.
What lay ahead of our heroes was unknown. They had not seen another man, woman, or child in ages. The undead had transformed everything. They were now surrounded by evil.
Yeah, so if this was the characters talking to each other instead of a narrator.
Sure that it would belong to the founder of the Astral Academy, one of the 3 guardians. If they could find his tomb, perhaps they would find a spell to get them out of the Trine.
Seemingly they are trapped inside of the Trine. Although that doesn't visually make a lot of sense. Yep. Yeah, if this had been instead the 3 characters popping up and you had a larger face-on animation of the characters and they were talking to each other, where the wizard was saying, yeah, I think we should go this way and go towards the tomb, that would give you way better opportunities to develop the characterization of the characters so you can better relate to them. Just seeing their faces, seeing them interact makes a lot more sense than having a narrator. Narrators are pretty much useless in video games and stories in general. You want a narrator to show up maybe at the beginning of a video game to just establish what's going on if you have absolutely no one else in the story that you can rely on to relay that information. But in almost every scenario, you do have a protagonist. So the protagonist could relay that information, just thinking to themselves and self-narrating. Like, it kind of makes sense, I suppose, if you were going to... this game probably auto-saves, but I'll save anyways. If you were going to establish something where a lot is going on and it can't be known by any specific character. Like, if you're thinking, say, the Les Miserables story, there's lots of different characters there and a lot of stuff you might want to tell the audience, but that is such an old school way of doing things. Or Romeo and Juliet's another great example. Lots of characters, no specific character works if they have all their knowledge. So that's when you create the narrator, who is a non-interactive character that is usually all-knowing. But video game-wise, you rarely need that to be the case, because in a video game, you're playing as a character who is either going to be all-knowing anyways, or you're playing as the player controlling a character who's going to be all-knowing anyways. Either way, so yeah. So far, so good. That was rather long, though. I was not really expecting each level, or a tutorial and a level, to take an hour and 10 minutes. Anyways, this is where I'm going to end this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.